Hey everybody, it's Jasmine and I'm super excited to bring you guys a review on the brand new releases from Outtro. Here we have the brand new 12-piece brush set and we also have their brand new palette. So we have the Blooms palette, which is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and then we also have the Canyon palette. Now I want to make this review as quick and to the point as possible, so when I am talking about the palettes, I'm also going to show you guys the tutorials as well as the arm swatches. If any of the items that I review today intrigue you, or if you want to snag something else from the Outtro website, I know that they just had a restock, then definitely use the code ThatsSoYin at checkout just to save a little bit of extra cash. Now for this review, I think I am going to start off with the 12-piece brush set. Now it does come in this really cute pouch that I feel like is actually really nice quality. Like, this is something that you get from Miss Laura Mercier. Like, I just really am digging this. So love the pouch that it comes in. However, I do feel like because the inside is definitely, I don't know what kind of material this inside is, but it's one of those materials that, like, if you had a dirty brush and you put it back in the bag, the dirt and all the makeup from the brush will not rub off from the inside. So I think that's the only con that I have about this, but other than that, we're just gonna keep this as is. I love this so much. Now again, there are 12 brushes and this brush set does retail for $26. So I feel like that's relatively, I don't want to say affordable, but I think that's just like a normal price for a 12-piece brush set in my opinion. So out of the 12 brushes, there are 4 for the face. Now, number 1 here is just your typical domed powder brush. And these brushes are made with synthetic fibers, so it's all really soft. I think we all are accustomed to synthetic fibers. And then the number 2 brush here is kind of the same as far as texture is concerned. It's just a different shape. It's more of a flat top as opposed to a dome top. And what I like about all of these brushes just in general is the fact that it has a mixture of being dense enough but also flimsy enough. It's not too dense to the point where it's kind of like a Sigma flat top kabuki, but it's definitely not as flimsy and wavy as like some highlighter brushes can be. So definitely keep that in mind. Now brush number 3 is just your typical angled brush that you could use for bronzer, contour, blush. And then here we have the number 4 brush, which I personally use for my under eye setting powder. You can use this for highlighter, but I feel like it's too large for the highlighting area in my opinion. So those are the 4 face brushes, and then we have 8 different eye brushes. So number 5 is going to be just your typical medium blending brush. Now this is where I feel like this set is not my favorite. I feel like the blending brushes are great. There are a total of 3 blending brushes in this set, and then some just other ones that are smaller or for eyeshadow. In their last launch, they launched an 8-piece eye brush set, and dare I say I like the shape and the variety in this set, the 8-piece brush set, as opposed to this newer 12-piece brush set. I feel like these ones blend in my eyeshadows a lot better, and I feel like I like the shapes because I do have small eyes, so sometimes having larger blending brushes can create a really big problem and a lot of mess for me. So when it comes to the eye department, I really recommend the 8-piece over this 12-piece. But it's definitely not to say that this isn't good. It's just that I have small eyes, so I just prefer different sizes. Okay, let's continue with number 6. You get your typical flat eyeshadow brush. We all have seen them, we all have them. Here we have a number 7 brush, and this one is very, very reminiscent to, I want to say, like a Morphe, it's not M501 because I think that's the blending, or I think that's the highlighting brush, but it's kind of like this where it's flat, but you could also blend your eyeshadow with it. It's okay to me. I don't think that this brush is a necessity for me, but it is in the collection. Here is a number 8 brush, your typical concealer brush, very simple. I think we all have one of these in our collection. However, I feel like that is very, very dense. So when it comes to applying my eyeshadows or even some concealer on my eyelid, I feel like sometimes it soaks up a lot of product. So what I would do with this type of brush, if you have it and if it is more of a denser consistency, I would recommend using that with like your pot concealers, pot color correctors, anything that comes in that pot hot, thick cream formula. Those typically go better with dense brushes. And then we're gonna move on into one of the smaller blending brushes, which I actually utilize a lot, which is number 9. And you know, this is just the only one that I feel like personally fits my crease really well, and that's like one of my favorites. Then we have here number 10. I think that this is like my least favorite brush in this entire collection because she's flat, she's angled, and it's like I don't know what to do with her. Every single time I see it, I'm like, I don't know. So what I actually use this for is my eyeshadow primer, and I find that it works pretty well for me. Number 11 is your small pencil brush. So this is great for your lower lash line or even inner corner or any detail work that you might have. And then finally, we have the eyebrow brush, and we have just a small, thin brush. It's not the thinnest brush I've ever had to use, but it's definitely not the thickest. It's definitely in the middle. So I would say that this is very comparable to maybe the Shop Miss A Paw Paw charity one. So it's very nice. I love the spoolie, super soft, luxe. So considering that Miss ThatsSoYin has hundreds of brushes, and I'm not exaggerating, I think that this brush set is okay. I think that you might like this if you are a beginner makeup artist and you are trying to have a solid brush set to work on clients, or if you're just a beginner makeup enthusiast and you just need a solid brush set that has both brushes for the face and the eyes as well, that's very well rounded. I feel like I get a good combination of blending brushes to my flat brushes, and I feel like if I compare that to say like BH Cosmetics, I think that the quality in these are a little bit better than BH, and I think that they are roughly around the same price. So I mean, take that as you will. Very soft bristles. I just think I'm a little bit more nitpicky with my brushes considering the fact that I have so many, and I already know the brush sizes and shapes that I personally prefer. Let's move on into the Canyon palette. Now this palette here is full of your neutrals. Now Alter Ego is actually known to copy higher end palettes, and I actually really like that because we all know that I am not gonna spend more than $40 on an eyeshadow palette unless I absolutely need it and want it, and that it's going to help me pay for my gas and food. But this palette right here is actually really beautiful. It actually kind of reminds me of my favorite Alter Ego palette, the Sahara palette, but this one definitely tends to lean more on the shimmery side as opposed to matte. And I also really like the fact that it stays pretty safe while still being kind of dark and mysterious with the shades like Expanse and Desert Moon, where it's definitely more on that darkened shimmery side. As far as the shimmers are concerned, I definitely think Alter Ego came out with more soft, more buttery, more easy to work with shimmers in their other palettes. However, these are still really, really good. I'm just trying to nitpick for you guys in this type of review because I know that I own like all of the Alter Ego palettes, and yes, I may have decluttered some, but that's not to say I didn't dig my fingers into them. And I just think that this palette, if you don't have a neutral palette with more shimmers to matte ratio, then I think that you might really, really like this. I think in general, when I see an eyeshadow palette that has these darkened shimmer shades like Expanse and like Desert Moon, sometimes it can be a little bit more dry, but you can actually work it into like your eyeliner or even your crease, and it could still create like a beautiful like smoky effect, even though you may not be using it all over the eyelid or all over as like a one shadow look. I have mentioned this in a lot of my other videos, but I think that my favorite palette from Alter Ego definitely is the Sahara palette because there's a lot more matte. So this is what the Sahara palette looks like, and I think that this palette is very unique because there's a mix of all different tones. You get the warm tones, the neutral tones, and the cool tones all in one palette, plus you get a lot of mattes, and I love that. And here is the Canyon palette side by side with it, and I feel like you can see some overlap, but definitely the Canyon runs a lot more warm than neutral and cool. So you do get some type of difference with these two palettes, but I genuinely feel like if you already own the Sahara, I don't think you absolutely need the Canyon unless you just really don't like the cool tones that are provided or even the neutral tones that are provided. Let's move on into the eyeshadow palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today, and that is the Blooms palette. Now, this is a beautiful pink and purple tone palette, and I just think in general, pinky purple palettes are really hard to come out with. I think a lot of the times companies fail to create like a beautiful, vibrant purple, and I feel that is the same with this palette, unfortunately. I have tried a lot of different purple palettes in my day, and this one was genuinely lackluster to me. It was really unfortunate, so I did try to layer Violet underneath Orchid. Orchid is the shimmery purple, and I just found that it was so patchy. So I had to go over it with some of the reddened shades, and it did end up working out in the end. Like, I created a beautiful look, but ultimately it just took so long to get where I needed it to be. And I feel like because I already have the Jackie Aina and ABH palette, it has a similar color story to this palette already. So to me, it kind of feels like this doesn't compare to what I already love. And it really hurts my heart to say that, because this palette looks really, really beautiful. But you know what? As far as the shimmers are actually concerned, they're really, really pretty. I do think that they were a little bit more dry than normal and the formula that I am used to with the Alter Ego palettes. But ultimately, I feel like I got some really pretty application with my fingers, and I think that's going to be your best bet with both of these palettes, both the Blooms and the Canyon palette. You are going to get the best pigmentation with your fingers. So just keep that in mind when you are thinking about getting these palettes. Unfortunately, I feel like because the purples didn't really work out in this palette, I feel like I would just genuinely give this like a 7 out of 10, because I was the most excited for the purples, but everything else just blended in beautifully. It performed as usual, but it was just that those two shades were the duds here. Overall, this collection with the 2 palettes as well as the 12-piece brush set were pretty good. I wasn't super excited about everything once I tried everything out. I wasn't super disappointed either. I think everything through and through had its pros and cons, which, I mean, it happens, you know, it's makeup at the end of the day. And I just feel like the Blooms palette could have used a little bit of extra elbow grease in the production era with the purples, but other than that, the whole palette worked completely fine. And then as far as the Canyon palette, some of the shimmers were dry, but you just really need to use your fingers with them. And then for the brushes, again, I prefer different sizes for my eye shape, which is probably why I normally buy single brushes anyway nowadays, because I just have gone through too many phases of buying too many brush sets, and I just have hundreds. I do. I really do. So I hope you guys all ended up enjoying this review of the Alter Ego collection. If you guys found anything that you guys wanted out of this collection or even their past launches, then definitely don't forget to use the code ThatsSoYin at checkout. It's always encouraged, never forced. Thank you so much for watching this video and for recommending me to film it for you guys. I really do appreciate your patience, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye! Peace out, Girl Scouts.